Our G7 leaders are turning up the heat on Russia, pledging to remain firmly in support of Ukraine. The US says there will be more sanctions against President Vladimir Putin's regime. G7 members also looking to finalize plans for a price cap on Russian oil. Ukraine's president also made a virtual address to leaders meeting in Germany today. Volodymyr Zelenskyy renewed his call for more weapons and air defense systems, with the host of the summit expressing strong but cautious support.
We are discussing all the topics that are on the agenda, especially staying united in supporting the Ukraine against the Russian aggression. And we understood that the policies of all our countries are very much aligned. And this is, I think, the good message, that we are taking tough decisions, that we are also cautious.
And Ollie Barrett joins us live from Bavaria in southern Germany. Ollie, G7 planning more sanctions against Russia. They also want to finalize plans for a price cap on Russian oil. We have heard talk about that in the last few months within the EU. How likely is it that we can actually see achievement on that by tomorrow?
Well, when it comes to sanctions, we certainly are seeing new sanctions being moved towards the UK, US, Canada and Japan moving towards a ban on Russian gold imports. We're also seeing the Americans announce further sanctions around Russian defense industries. Those countries say that they will have a significant impact on Vladimir Putin's ability to finance his war machine. You have to look at those, though, and realize that you don't see all of the G7 moving at the same time on some of those measures, and that's partly because you have European Union members here as well, and when they move on sanctions, they need to move in coordination with other EU member states who aren't here represented at the G7 summit, even though we do have the European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen around the table. And so G7 leaders doing their best to make sure they can show that they are moving in the direction of new sanctions against Russia, even if it doesn't always involve all of the G7 countries at the same time. When it comes to that oil price cap, you can see exactly why the G7 leaders want to achieve it, and that's because they feel that a lot of the movements in that area so far have actually backfired in a way, because the oil price has been spiking and therefore Vladimir Putin has been seeing rising revenues flowing towards Russia despite the sanctions on his country. Whether a price cap can actually be achieved, it's a very hard one to see how the G7 leaders can come out of this summit and say that that is something that is ready to go, because it just involves so many other players, many of which aren't here at the G7 summit.
Players that are there at the summit, not just the core G7 rich democratic countries. We also had non-members holding working sessions in outreach programs. And these include Indonesia and India. Any major comments coming out of these sessions?
That's right, India, Indonesia, but also South Africa, Senegal, Argentina. What the German hosts want to show here is that they're including other major democracies, and that the world's major democracies are united on a number of issues and can work together on a number of issues. Now, some of those issues are being discussed today. Food security is absolutely critical to the outreach sessions that we're seeing here in Bavaria, not least because some of those invited countries are seeing real impacts from the rising price of food, the difficulty with securing the flow of Ukraine's grain products out of the country. The UK has launched a scheme today to try and make sure it can help in that regard, and it's trying to get other G7 countries to sign up. It is offering support to the Ukrainian railway system, for example, to see if that is a way that grain can get out of the country ahead of the crucial July harvest season. But it also serves to illustrate an area of difference between some of the G7 countries here. The UK believes that grain should be prioritised for food instead of fuel, and it's urging countries like America to step back from using quite so much grain to produce things like biofuel. The Americans don't think that they can go in that direction, certainly not at this summit. They think it would be a mistake. So that just illustrates again one of the areas of difference between G7 countries as they try and show unity not just with each other but also with those invited countries, including India and Indonesia.
Thanks for that. Ollie Barrett speaking to us there from Bavaria, the G7 summit.